So I'm going to spend a couple minutes just discussing what I think is going on with Aiden and the approach that I'm taking. Recognize that this is my thought process and how I'm viewing his body based upon my understanding about the human system, the intricate nature of how it functions and works, and the complicated nature with some people process the information that their brain and their body are receiving, both internally and from the environment. In my mindset, the way that the body functions with every respiration we take throughout the daytime is that certain things rotate and move internally. The way our organs orient themselves, the way the flow of our fluids and the precession that happens internally when we go to inhale 22 to 24,000 times a day is this leftward precession that takes place. The liver has a propensity to rotate forward and towards the right. It creates this mechanism internally, okay? Over the course of time, the body will adapt to that. If we throw in various other factors, let's say cortical influence, left hemispheric dominance, let's say a strong left hemispheric lateralized brain, which dominates a right side, we'll take this already rightward oriented system and leftward flowing system and create more and more compression. This is your son. I think it's fair to say this is what you see often, is this very depressed on the right side, over-engaged right abdominal wall, shortened, overactive right diaphragm, crura that's overactive for every inhalation, likely adhesions of the internal structures inside the intercostal wall, the liver probably anchored hard to that diaphragm, the suspensory ligaments probably doing. There's just compression on this poor kid's body. What that happens internally in terms of the spine and the rib cage is that this creates this torque. This torque creates compression now inside the spine and subsequently the spinal cord. Now we have this anchoring that's happening on the spinal cord. It doesn't like tension, as you know. So if I have a system that's being lateralized, pulled, oriented, and anchored on this side, and being shoved, rotated, and torqued into the opposite direction, that spinal cord is now being pulled from multiple sources down the spinal cord. That creates traction on that spinal cord. There's a septum down the middle of the spinal cord, so you have kind of a right and a left side of the spinal cord that's going to be more aggressively influenced by this pull. So now you've got these spinal segments being pulled and yanked and tugged all the way up to the brainstem. Now you're going to have this brainstem that's being pulled and anchored down to the base of the occiput. At that brainstem, now you're going to have that go all the way up into the limbic system, up into the thalamus region. So now you've got this pull that's happening like this on this poor kid's brain and body. That's going to affect the autonomics. So now you've got sympathetic overdrive because the brain has torque and traction on it that's being influenced by his very body position and internal functions. That, Carolyn, as you have seen, there's clearly a sensory component feeding into this as well too. With this right over periphery lateralized system, bringing him further to the right. With a right auditory influence system, bringing him further down and over to the right. So here's how he's able to navigate his daytime. Taking his space like this, taking his auditory input like this, anchoring a body that's already anchored, taking a system that's already pulled and organized into this direction and making it that much more exaggerated. His nervous system is in threat all day long, lying in bed at night, getting up in the morning, walking around, which is why he feels like he can't do anything other than just lie down, let alone go for walks. That constant threat to his system, that nociceptic, I'm in constant pain, fight or flight, overdrive throughout the daytime, is perpetuating his pain response. And now he has a hard time navigating the way that he's able to take that input. That's my thought process as to what's going on with him. So when I'm doing things where he's got this thing that's blocking out his right periphery, that's decreasing and dampening the auditory influence to his system on this side, opening up this part of his world, getting him to be able to kind of learn to rotate through a rib cage, giving him a left ischial tuberosity and a left heel and a left-sided anchoring sense to help pull him the other way and allow him to be able to rotate more effectively through the system, to lubricate, to allow the cerebral spinal fluids to go through the brain and all the way up and down that spinal cord, to allow the arterial flow to happen smoothly through that whole cranial region, so that the meninges aren't being constantly pulled and yanked down onto that poor brain of his that's overloaded with the input that it's receiving, not only from his internal system, but also his environment. So when you see him standing, organized up on this side, he's on a step, he's tapping, he's leaning against something. I'm trying to get him to be as down, compressed, oriented, and arranged to this side as possible, while also decreasing the right influence to his sensory system, and getting him to learn to do that as often as he can during the daytime, so that he doesn't continue to try and bring himself back to the right and over to the left by, Carolyn, as you know, flattening his burrito by making himself wider in an attempt to try and figure out how to get this body to rotate through his system most effectively. I don't think there's anybody else he sees that's going to tell you that or think that way. And I'm not saying I'm right and everybody else is wrong, but when I talk about it being a challenge at times to have him figure out, have you figure out what combination of inputs are going to be most successful, it's hard because people won't be able to reinforce this with anywhere else he goes, which is why I'm so diligent about saying to him, he has to be thinking about this as often as he possibly can for this to be helpful and successful. It seems to be reducing his symptoms when we work with him, and it seems to be making a difference. So I think we're on the right path. I just don't want to have other interventions potentially muddy the water and create a different message that might take away from the direction that we're going. And again, please follow up with whomever you feel medically you feel he would need to. We talked about potentially seeing a neurooptometrist. We talked about potentially getting an ENT to be able to take a look at his nasal pharynx region, make sure that his septums aren't so badly deviated that he's not able to move airflow through his cranium, which is super important. We talked about occlusal influences and how that bite stick on his left side is now allowing him to have another source of anchor on that left side, and potentially seeing a dental specialist who looks at the way that the influence that occlusatory, temporomandibular, maxillary facial function can have on posture, structure, and function. I think he would actually benefit from some input through his feet. He needs as much support and sensory balancing as we can put into him to reinforce these concepts that I just spent some time talking to you about. I hope that's not too much. I am happy to discuss this further, but I wanted to kind of at least have this on recording so you could reflect back to it or feel free to ask questions as you stop and play it through. Thanks.